All right, so I'm Josh Grant. I am a creator evangelist at Epic. I've been with Epic for nearly 3 years now, but my journey with UGC began even a couple years prior. So I've always been obsessed with creating things. Growing up, when I finally got old enough to play video games, my favorites had always been the games that aligned with that creativity. I liked things like survival games, sandboxes, simulators, things that allowed me to have a significant amount of control over the world and my play style. So when Fortnite Creative first released 5 years ago, I instantly hopped in to scratch that creative itch. My favorite shooter at the time now had this mode where I could go in and build whatever I wanted. It was great. I was hit with an instant feeling of gratification after I put my first map out there. And so I did a couple more years building games. And then eventually I joined Epic as an evangelist with the goal of improving our tools, improving our ecosystem, and helping creators build successful careers filled with great games.
Hi, my name is Jay Villanueva. I'm a senior technical game design lead at Epic Games on UEFN. Some of you may have seen my talk last year, creating your first game in Fortnite using UEFN. Prior to Epic, I've spent 17 years as a technical game designer for PlayStation, working on PlayStation Portable, Vita, PS4, PS5, and PC games. My last AAA game I shipped was Days Gone. It was for the PS4 and PS5, was powered by Unreal technology. I'm passionate about making games, but I'm also passionate about empowering others to make games. So that's why I'm here working on UEFN, is I want to be able to help everyone get the tools they need to make great games. Oh. Also, as you may have seen in the programming, I'm not Matt Berner. Matt Berner could not be here, unfortunately. He worked really hard with Josh to assemble this talk, and he asked me to fill in, and I'm happy to talk about UEFN, using UEFN to build new genres.
All right, so a little overview of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to give a brief history of Creative and UEFN for those of you that might not be familiar. And then we're going to talk about the Track Creator, which we just released. We're going to talk about camera and controls. And then we're going to look forward a little and talk about items and inventory and physics. And then we'll have a little Q&A afterwards. So I'd like to get started by sharing the awesome story of how Fortnite went from being a massive Battle Royale game to an ecosystem that transcends a single genre and inspires creativity. So Fortnite released in 2017 as a cool new PvP or PvE action building game where players could team up, build forts, and defend their base from hordes of zombies. Just a couple months later, we released an early access Battle Royale mode in Fortnite. And Battle Royale, as we all know, took the world by a storm, and it became a sensational hit. Still, that wasn't the end. A little over a year later, Fortnite's journey into user-generated content began. We launched Fortnite Creative in December 2018, a new mode that allowed players to create their own experiences using their favorite Fortnite assets and weapons. With the release of Fortnite Creative, the reality was clear. Fortnite was now not just a single genre. Now, like any area of game development, getting to that point has been a journey. Fortnite Creative's initial launch was small in scope, but coming from someone who got their hands on those tools immediately, there was an overwhelming feeling of potential there. Creators began using these tools for the core combat modes, things like free-for-alls and team deathmatch. But they took it even further than that. By thinking outside the box, they built games that separated themselves from the iconic action gameplay. Minigames, mazes, parkour became huge genres within the Fortnite creative community. These were styles of games that you couldn't possibly play in Fortnite before, and so they quickly became a staple of what Fortnite now was and is. Even today, as you browse Discover, you'll find death runs inspired by the ones that came 5 years ago. They're seriously a pillar of Fortnite's history. So as time went on, Fortnite Creative got more and more updates. Looking back, it felt like as if every other week an update came out and more genres were possible for us to build. The most significant addition at the time was the release of channels, receivers, and all the devices that came with them. No longer were creative games these static modes determined solely by their play area and island settings. Instead, creators could use these devices to communicate with each other and adjust games on the fly, and so the doors flew open. Every game release became more and more dynamic. Genres were opening up at every corner. We saw genres like Zone Wars, adventure games, hide and seek, party games all explode as these devices came in. And through this, one message became clear. Creators can do a lot with very little. Our goal with development quickly became, how can we create features to enable our creators to explore as many genres as possible? And to this day, that's still our priority. So with that previous thought, creators can do a lot with very little. It's safe to say that none of us at Epic really knew what to expect when we released UEFN Into the Wild last year at GDC 2023. I'm not kidding. There was genuinely this open question of what creators would do with the massive new suite of tools. And it's an honor to be here at GDC 1 year later with the answer to that question. So throughout the past year of constant development, creators have done a lot. Using the power of Verse, custom assets, sequencer, UI, and many other tools, creators in the ecosystem have never had this much freedom. Every week, we saw cool new games getting released of all different genres. Not only that, we witnessed popular existing games convert to UEFN and polish their experiences with fresh UI and sharper mechanics. Creators have taken this past year to experiment with different types of experiences to see what clicks with their audience. And they use this unlocked potential to tackle colossal genres that became trending in the ecosystem. For example, horror. Thanks to custom assets, sequencer, custom audio, and post-processing, horror games were one of the first significant genre trends post-UEFN release. Creators like Word Andrew, 3D Lab, and Neverty7 all released stellar horror games that truly pushed the boundary of what we thought was possible in Fortnite. If you told me a couple years ago that Fortnite was a place where you could be chased around by a scary giant carrot, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have believed if you said a banana. So with the help of Verse UI, and Sequencer, and Niagara, the tycoon genre was another massive hit in the ecosystem. Creators like Future Trash and Third Made were able to create highly polished, fun, rewarding, and retentive games that attracted tens of thousands of players at any given moment. More recently, we've seen a boom in games leveraging Verse, Niagara, and custom UI to give players superpowers. Creators like The Boy Dilly, Team Gearsy, and Superjoy have combined these powers with the tried-and-true combat games to give that genre a new twist. So when we break it down, what defines a genre? It's a complicated question. As we've already seen, different genres require different things. Maybe it's solely gameplay, maybe it's determined by the art style, the setting, the weapons, the amount of max players. It can be all those things, it can be any one of them, but even that's not enough. Creators have been free to determine any of those factors for a long time, and even more so since the launch of UEFN. We've seen them tackle all these different game types, and yet there's still several types of play that have been difficult for creators to achieve. Over the years, creators have been wanting to make things like high-speed racing games, side-scrollers, fighting games, cozy games, RPGs, but historically, it had been hard to master those genres and differentiate yourself from the thousands of other Fortnite islands because you're all using the same weapons, cameras, movement, and more. At a certain point, no matter the genre, every game can start to feel the same. And so this past year, we've really focused our development on giving creators the right tools to customize their game however they want. We want them to easily break into genres that differ from Battle Royale and ultimately set themselves apart from all the other islands out there. So with that being said, I'd like to take this opportunity to show you where we are in that mission. And we're going to start with the brand new Rocket Racing Track Creator tools. So in December, we launched a brand new racing mode in Fortnite, where we leveraged the incredible Rocket League cars and threw them into an exciting racing environment. Rocket Racing greatly expanded the racing genre in Fortnite, adding high-speed driving, flying, and flipping that are inherent to the Rocket League cars. We launched with 26 tracks made by Epic, full of fun shortcuts and obstacles for players to experience. But now it's time for creators to take it a step further. So just yesterday, we launched the Rocket Racing Track Creator tools, allowing creators to make their very own racing games with the tried and true rocket racing mechanics. Let's take a look at the trailer. So just as Creative enabled creators to leverage Battle Royale content and turn it into games that we couldn't even imagine, our Track Creator tools leverage the systems we've made for Rocket Racing and allow creators to customize them to whatever their needs are. We launched with 5 different devices: the checkpoint to keep players on track, the boost pad to add exciting variables to the track, the MP volume to make the level a little more tricky and give players an obstacle to avoid, and then the speedrun and competitive race managers to determine what type of race you'd like to create and customize the game rules. Going forward, we want to add more compatibility with existing devices and Verse to open the doors even wider for creators. In the meantime, the Rocket Racing Car Spawner is now available in regular UEFN projects where you can work with it unrestricted on any game type you want. And then, of course, we have a comprehensive spline editor for intuitive and easy track creation. Let's take a look. So as you can see here, the Track Creator tool leverages existing Unreal workflows that you're probably all familiar with. You can lay out, sculpt, change the track pieces, remove them. The design's completely in your hands. So when you raise the track, bank it, or you want to close the loop, UEFN is going to insert the transition meshes for a seamless track all for you. It's really awesome. It's a ton of fun to use. So how will players find the tracks you make? Well, like all our other content, your Rocket Racing maps can be found right in Discover. If players are looking for even more options, they can navigate to the Browse tab and search through the Rocket Racing category. And if they're already certain which track they want, but they just need to find it, they can search for it using the island code or the title. Once they've found the game, all they have to do is select it, hit play, and they'll be sent into a lobby ready to race. So these tools, along with some sample tracks, are on display at our UEFN kiosk, so be sure to check them out after the talk. And if you're watching this as a recording later on, these tools are out now, so you can go use them.
All right, let's talk about camera and controls. Until last December, all islands have been using the same third-person camera and Battle Royale character movement controls since Creative and Battle Royale launched. Now, some of you creators out there have gotten very clever with the camera and have managed to do amazing things with it. But those methods weren't really flexible, and it required a lot of work on your part. So at the end of last year, we introduced new camera devices into early access. With these, creators were able to change the aesthetics of play in their game and give players a new perspective. Along with these camera devices, we also introduced control devices paired with them. These devices finally gave creators the option to change how players controlled the game. They enabled you to create games beyond Battle Royale and creative games that had been released up until that point. So let's talk about the existing toolbox and what's coming on the roadmap. So first is the fixed angle camera. This device is already out. It's a camera that moves, but it does not rotate. This is a huge departure from the third-person camera that we've had. And this device enables you to create massive arcade-style action games, traditional 2D side-scrollers, or even intense top-down competitive games. The next device is the fixed point camera. Now, this is the opposite of the fixed angle. It does not move, but it can rotate. This lets creators frame the game however they want. You can use this to direct the player, to emphasize something, to give the player a unique perspective into the game. You can make an intriguing puzzle game from a fixed perspective. You can build a cozy space that the player sees from above. Or you can build a frightening experience where the player views the game world through a security camera. We also introduced the Orbit camera. The Orbit camera is considered to be the bread and butter of the AAA world. It offers the most control. It follows a target, and it allows the player to look into any direction. And at first glance, you might be thinking, this looks exactly like we already had, and that's very true. It is similar to what you've had before, except now you have the flexibility to change it. So you don't have to resort to obscure methods. This camera allows you to pull the camera way out so the player has a view of their surroundings. You can change the field of view. You can also push the camera all the way into the player so it sits in their chest and go ahead and hide the player, giving you the first-person view that you've all been working towards for a long time. Now, this is not the same as the first-person camera. Notice I said hide the character. So if you watch the State of the Union, you'll see some other first-person features that are coming further down the roadmap. This just brings the camera down much closer. So all this is in early access, and we'll be adding more features further down the line. So the camera devices are about framing content. The control devices are about interpreting player intent. If you push right in BR currently, your character will strafe to the right. But in a top-down view, that's not what you want. You want the character to turn and face right and move in that direction. And this is a problem that can be hard to get right if you've worked with cameras and controls yourselves. But luckily, the devices are here. So the third-person controls device allows you to instantly just drop it into your scene, and your character will act properly relative to what the camera is saying. So this has been shipped, and it pairs with other camera devices so that you can move. So it allows you to move independent of the camera facing. So however you set up your camera, right means right, left means left, up and down. This is what it does now. You might notice there are some parts that are grayed out. So over here, movement facing is the default that I described. So if you push right, your character will turn and face that way. That is what's out now. What's on the roadmap is to expand this device to add some other modes. So movement facing will be the default mode. Fixed facing will keep the player facing the same direction. So imagine making an infinite runner where you drop the camera behind the player, but they're always facing forward down the camera view. And left and right means the player will strafe left and right and move forward. Also coming is twin stick. This enables the player to control facing with one of the control inputs, if you're using a controller or the right stick, while moving the player with the left stick. So you can now aim independent of movement. Also on the roadmap are side scroller controls. This lets you to restrict the player to an axis and keep the gameplay on a specific plane of movement. While you're keeping your player on an axis and keep the facing, you'll also be able to move the player forward and back, depth into the scene. So much like an arcade side-scrolling beat-em-up. You'll be able to move the player left and right, face left and right, but actually move forward and backwards into the scene. You also have control over target management, much like the devices you have now, so you can set up how you want your game to play. It's just another tool in your toolbox. So you aren't restricted to any one of these. You can mix and match them as you see fit. You can go ahead and change your camera perspective, and your devices will begin working with that.
So speaking of, we've seen what these devices are. Let's take a look at how they're being used so far. So we started with a sample project, Village, to show off how camera controls can be combined with other UEFN tools like Verse, UI, Sequencer, and more to enable different genres, such as intricate RPGs or relaxing, cozy games. By dynamically combining the fixed-point camera, fixed-angle camera, and third-person controls devices, the Epic Labs team was able to make a highly polished and inspiring Village experience. All right, so you'll notice when we interact with this NPC, we'll switch to a close-up fixed-point camera. And now we've pulled the camera out to give players an overview of the whole island. And then we seamlessly bring the camera back in. These transitions are all handled by UEFN. When we talk to this NPC, she's going to give us access to her shop. So we'll go in, and you'll notice we get teleported to a cozy interior, top-down, using the fixed-point camera. And we're using the third-person controls to give the player an easy way to move around this area. So, as expected, when we released these devices, creators took the cameras and quickly released stellar experiences like this side-scroller, Boss Rush, made by Cardin. Boss Rush uses the fixed-angle camera and third-person control, along with awesome 2D assets, to give the player a traditional side-scroller experience. It's filled with platforming, coins, enemies, and bosses for the player to tackle. We're excited to see how this new genre evolves in the coming year as we add more functionality with the side-scroller controls we mentioned a few minutes ago. Let's take a look. That's Fortnite now. Puzzle games have been another awesome genre we've seen expand after we gave creators the ability to have control over that camera. So Escape Worlds by Alliance Studios uses the fixed-point camera, fixed-angle camera, and the third-person controls, along with custom translucent walls to create a compelling top-down experience where the player has to navigate through each level to unlock the next. You'll see here as the player goes under things and goes out of view, Alliance has made it so that those meshes go transparent. Another great example here. And this one's using the fixed point. All right. And of course, these devices don't strictly have to be used to create new genres with different fixed perspectives. NeezyX integrated the new fixed-point camera device into his combat experience, Battlegrounds 25v25, and paired it with a sequencer and Verse UI to create a polished respawn flow after the player is eliminated. Let's take a look. So you'll see when the player gets knocked here, the camera gets pulled out. You get an overview of your surroundings. And then he's used another fixed-point camera above the island to act as what seems like a 2D map paired with the Verse UI. And then when you select a spawn location, the camera gets pulled in and you're teleported gliding down. So with the new racing tools, cameras, and so much more released in the last several months, I'm sure you're all eager to hear where we see ourselves going from here, and how we plan on opening the door to more and more types of play. A big step in that process is going to be tackling items and inventory.
All right, let's talk about items and inventory. Let's talk about where item inventory is today. You have a lot of constraints. Today, in Fortnite, the inventory consists of 5 main slots. In those slots, you can have weapons, throwables, and consumables. Along with those, there are separate slots dedicated to traps, ammo, building and world resources that the player might acquire in the game. Where it stands, there isn't much you can do to change this. Similarly, items at creators' disposal are restricted to those that come from Battle Royale. There's a benefit here, and is that you have hundreds of items that are polished and balanced for gameplay, such as weapons and consumables. Some creators have gotten very clever, again, just like with the cameras, with the tools to create weapons and items, but the problem is that you can't really change them. I have played a sci-fi game where my objective was to steal death ray plans, and those death ray plans were represented by a banana, because the creators simply didn't have the flexibility to actually add something that fit their game. And it really breaks immersion. Also, items are fixed. The damage, the fire rate, the magazine, and weapons, and consumables have fixed effects. So we're fixing that, and so I'd like to talk about our vision. So on the roadmap are custom inventories. For inventory, we've challenged ourselves to create a system that can be used for any game. And when you talk about inventories, it breaks down into 2 things, really. Inventory and equipment slots. So an inventory could be anything like a backpack, an herb bag, a key ring. It could be limited by weight, by slots. There are restrictions on those slots that you can place. Then with equipables, the concept of equipable is that it will have effects. It will provide armor, stats. It will give the player the ability to do something. So those systems need to be paired with custom UI. That UI must fit it has to fit your game. It can help with the personality and the aesthetics of what you're trying to do. And you can optimize it for your experience. So for example, you can maybe implement a weapon wheel for your UI. Also on the roadmap are custom items. So awesome inventories, you need awesome items. So this is our vision. There are many ways to approach this, and that we're thinking of giving a lot of flexibility for you to leverage. And a few ways we're thinking is, firstly, allowing you to create an item that is just a reference to a Battle Royale item. This will allow you to stay up to date whenever Battle Royale updates an item. That way you can have the latest and greatest in your game. The next is to copy an existing item and make it your own. So this will not update, so that any changes that occur in Battle Royale won't affect your game. You can keep it static, but you can copy that functionality in. The third way would be to inherit an item and modify some of its properties. Whatever you do not modify will be referenced, so that when Battle Royale updates or any other game updates in the future, you will get those, but any of your overrides will stay. And of course, last but not least is the ability to create an item from scratch. We plan on adding logic and behaviors for you to use out of the box, while giving you the ability for you to make your own. Also on the roadmap is general physics. We've announced that this year we'll be enabling physically simulated characters in UEFN and Creative. Enabling physics means the ability to simulate any static mesh, as you see here. Creators will be able to leverage physics in all types of games across all genres. Worlds that respond to the player, creating dynamic situations that allow for emergent gameplay. Puzzle games, combat games, open world, role-play games. It's up to you on how to boost the fun. Plus, everyone loves explosions, right? So today we've talked about the racing tools and how the racing tools in Rocket Racing it further opens up the racing genre to all you creators. We've talked about cameras and controls, where they're at, how they've redefined the ability to make games in different genres, and where we're going in the future. We talked about our vision for inventory and items and bringing physics and physically based gameplay to your games. We want to expand the genres that are accessible to our creators and the types of play that are accessible to our players. And we're eagerly waiting to see what you do with all these tools and what you make. And just a reminder, you don't have to restrict yourself to any one of these things. You can mix and match all of those, just as we've demonstrated today. It's up to you. Thank you.